Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'm Daniel McCaughan for Fox News Radio, WFYL 1180 AM, and we are in Harlem, USA. That is right, Harlem, USA, not downtown, not midtown. Ladies and gentlemen, this is New York. We are joined by John Burnett. Hello, John.
Hi, how are you? Thanks
for
coming.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, John, and meeting us here. John's actually indigenous personnel. In the military, we call that permanent party. Those are the cats that live in a particular area. We are
just 4 blocks up the street.
4 blocks up the street is where John lives, which right here is 2 blocks from the Apollo Theater.
Yes.
You cannot get more in Harlem than we are right now, and that's a fact, Jack. So, sitting here at the Corner Social, it's a magnificent club, pub, restaurant. They told me there's going to be music tonight. They said they have music almost every night. We are here pretty much on invitation. I met John during the Republican National Convention. We were standing in a field at the Cleveland Science Center waiting for Donald Trump to arrive, and we weren't disappointed when that happened. It was an event, but something stood out. I mean, there were plenty of people there, and you know, the media were there because, well, we're supposed to be. But the crowd of people that were there for seeing the Donald, that's what impressed us. And John stood out from the crowd. As I said to him then, John, you don't look like a typical Republican. Are you a Trump supporter? And he said he was. And I said, you don't look like a typical Trump reporter because you're tall. Now, we're sitting down, so you probably can't get that full perspective. But in all seriousness, he's an impressive young man, and I said, I got to talk to this guy. And we've become fast friends. He invited us to come to Harlem, and we took him up on the invitation. We just spent the afternoon having a wonderful lunch, meeting a few fine people that John asked to stop by, some others that just popped in, and we're going to have that as part of this interview. You can, we'll probably clip it up if you want to see the whole interview as one. If you want to see the different people that stopped in, you'll be able to click on them individually and see that as well. John, good afternoon. It's been a good day.
Yeah, it has been, definitely.
How are you in Harlem, USA, sir?
I'm doing well. Every day is a good day in Harlem.
It's America, isn't it?
Absolutely.
John, you're involved in politics. You're a black man, lives in Harlem, working in Harlem, and you're a Republican.
Yeah, well, I was born in the People's Republic of Brooklyn. Raised in Queens. I've been living in Harlem for about 10 years now.
My brother from another mother. Go Flatbush. So he's from the South Brooklyn, and he's here in Harlem. John, you got an amazing career. You've done amazing things, but now you're an advocate for the people. You're part of the People's Revolution. What's that all about? How does someone like you end up a Republican, a staunch Republican, a noteworthy Republican in Harlem, USA? How's that happen?
Well, you know, when I look at my upbringing, I'm the youngest of 7. I was a tiebreaker. And like I said before, I was born in the People's Republic of Brooklyn, East New York to be exact. And when I looked at my parents' lifestyle, being raised in the South, strong work ethic, unfortunately the education system wasn't where it needed to be back then. However, they persevered, had a great family, and the way I grew up, we didn't know if we didn't have, well, we knew we didn't have, but that wasn't the focus. The focus was on God, our faith, our family, and just striving to always better yourself. And those are values that are closely aligned with Republican values. My father, you know, later on in life, I came to know that he was a member of the NRA, and they both were Democrats. So as I like to put it, they both were conservative Democrats. So I think, given those conservative values, and my father being a pastor, my mom being a missionary, in fact, I can remember times on Saturday morning wanting to watch cartoons, but yet my mom had Bible study on a Saturday morning. So when you look at all those values, and when I consider those things, I was always on the path, or always brought up with conservative values. The switch from Democrat to Republican started happening in 1997 as my ideology began to shift, as I began to learn more about the economy, learning more about financial empowerment and financial instruments, having worked in the financial services industry. Then that's when it began to switch, and I made the final change in terms of party, that is, in 2004.
And you became a registered Republican.
Yes.
President Reagan, one of the greatest presidents this nation ever produced, actually started life as a Democrat. And he was the governor of California, the left coast, as we call it here in the East Coast. And he was one of the greatest Republican conservative presidents this country has ever produced. It will go down in history as such. And I think part of it was because he didn't see the world as Republican or Democrat. He saw the world here as America. He saw us as Americans.
Right.
And I get that same vibe from you, John.
Yeah, and when you look at President Lincoln as well, I didn't realize how many times he failed in business and in politics. It was a track record of failure. He ran for so many different positions, but he even had a nervous breakdown. Yes, the 16th president of the United States had a nervous breakdown in his long history of terms of business and politics, but he persevered. So we could not have had a better example for a first Republican president than Lincoln.
And you said Republican president. I know there's a common myth. I run into it frequently. I'm sure other people do. A lot of people think Lincoln was a Democrat because he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which officially freed the slaves. He was not a Democrat.
No,
he was a Republican.
He was the first Republican president.
And he's the one that freed the slaves.
Absolutely.
And
he overcame adversity, personal, business, and political adversity, to become the first president.
And that's America, getting knocked down and getting up again.
We are a nation not only of chances, but second chances, third chances. However many times you can get back up, that's how many opportunities you have.
Let me ask you about that, and I'm going to focus specifically on the current presidential campaign. You talk about second chances. We all watched the debate not long ago, the first debate, and Hillary Clinton said something about Donald Trump had some of his companies filed for bankruptcy. What do you think about that?
Well, in business or in life in general, people really always focus on a few of your failures, but they never focus on the success. And many times on the path to success, you have to experience failure. It's just a part of life. So, guaranteed, those failures that Donald Trump had made him a better business person. And I think it speaks volumes to the voters, to everyday Americans, that yes, you will have some failures in life, but that should not cripple you. So I think those examples should not be used to admonish Donald Trump. It should be used as an example to get back up and fight.
So nothing is going to hit you as hard in this world as life, and it's not getting knocked down, it's how you get up that matters.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, attacking Donald Trump for his success, but they weren't there, crying for him or doing anything, in his benefit, for his benefit, during those times of failure. So I think, again, he shouldn't boast about it, but use it as an opportunity to really say, listen, I've had a lot of opportunities to succeed in life, and I think the everyday American, whether you're in Iowa or you're in Harlem, USA, you should have a right to succeed. Not a redistribution of wealth, but a redistribution of opportunity for all.
It's not where we start out in life, but it's where we end up.
Right, and it's what journey that you take, because each person's journey is different. It's like that is your fingerprint, because no one is walking in your shoes. You're the only person doing it, and as you're walking, you're leaving the footprint. So we have to give people the right blueprint to succeed, so that way they can create their own footprint.
Let me ask you about some points that were brought up during the debate. Trump used the word stop and frisk. I think we can agree that that's become a pejorative term. It's a dirty word at this point.
Right.
It was a program. It's not the Terry stop in legal parlance. It's not the reasonable suspicion stop. However, there was supposed to be an element of articulable standard or reasonable suspicion built into it when the concept was first developed. And I think probably the idea was good, but somewhere along the way the implementation became bad. And it's a good thing that it was stopped in the way it was being deployed, because it did become unfair.
Right.
Now, tell me your point on that. I mean, you live here in Harlem. I don't. You're a black man in Harlem. Tell me your position on that.
Yeah, I forget the year, but it was right around the time when Mayor Giuliani came into City Hall. I think the murders were about 2,300. That's a lot.
That's a lot of murders. That's just in New York City.
Exactly. And per year.
Wow.
And back then. And when you look at well, it's actually stop, question, and frisk.
Okay.
You may not ever get to the frisk part. You have to question. And if there's still reasonable suspicion, then the police officer, based upon the discretion for that particular incident or reason for the stop, you can move from question to frisk. So I think initially it was a good program. And as America's mayor said, in terms of the success of the program, he actually used it in areas where there was crime and high murder rates. If a neighborhood doesn't have high crime and high murder rates, there's no need to use stop, question, and frisk. So it was deployed in those high risk areas.
What was the result?
Well, I believe when he left City Hall, they came down, I think, anywhere between 500 and 550. So it was a
500 and 550 murders.
Right, 550 murders or thereabouts. So that was a drastic reduction in murders. Then I think Bloomberg took it from 550 or so down to about 300 and change. So, but the thing is, I think probably toward the end of the Giuliani era, or probably more so at the beginning of the Bloomberg era, that's when stop, question, and frisk moved from quotas. Even though it wasn't stated as a quota, there was a level of expectation, or a number, if you will, for cops to, I should say police officers, to actually reach. And then I think it became, the department became less of community policing, focusing on reducing crime and murders, but also focusing on the relationship, to more so focusing on numbers. And I think that's where stop, question, and frisk made a wrong turn. So I think the program, if applied correctly, could be beneficial. But now the name of the program and the harm that is done in terms of individual rights, it just doesn't sit well with people. And you know, I think they have a legitimate claim. You know, Republicans, or moreover conservatives in general, we believe in the power of the people, no matter what that people, you know, the people look like and their background. And we also believe in upholding individual rights. So whatever is presented or brought to the table must uphold the right of the individual, because each person has the right to pursue happiness and freedom, and we have to protect those freedoms, especially in this environment now, where it seems like the power of the individual, the freedom, is constantly being taken away or threatened. So I think maybe bringing certain elements in terms of stop, question, and frisk as it was originally designed and implemented, and making sure that there's proper governance, or maybe it might not even be called. Maybe we shouldn't even be calling it stop, question, and frisk. We should be focusing more so on community policing, building those relationships, focusing on high crime and high murder areas, right? Bringing that down, relying on police officers' intuition in terms of, you know, what they see and how they see it, and make sure that there's right training to make sure they're not seeing it through a biased lens. And let's be real, 99.5% of police officers do a great job, not every day, every minute, every second of the day, but it's those small percentage of police officers that could give departments a bad name, right? So another thing that I thought about that law enforcement should consider, and I support the people, right? Because we're for the people. It's about we the people, right?
We the people.
So
I
support the people, and I also support law enforcement because we have to have, law and order. But with that said, what is one of the main things that police officers use to fight crime and to get, to secure suspects? They use intelligence from the people. So they rely on the people for certain intelligence that helps them do their job, right? So if people don't work with police, they can't do their job.
So you're advocating people on the street, people in the neighborhoods need to be more involved working with their police.
Absolutely. But in that same vein, based upon that same premise, police officers, that 99.5%, need to be empowered on the other side of the blue wall to, I guess I would use a corporate term, whistleblowers, internal whistleblowers. If they see something, say something.
Okay.
The same premise that law enforcement asks every law-abiding citizen to do.
Right.
If you see something, say something.
No blue line of silence.
Right. So you could keep it on the other side of the blue wall. I understand that. But have certain policies and procedures that allows them and encourages them to hold themselves accountable.
And it comes down to that.
So they could deal with things behind the scene among themselves.
Individual responsibility and personal accountability. I like it, John.
Absolutely.
Talk to me. We've only got a few minutes left. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you have to say. What's it like being a black Republican man in Harlem, USA?
Wow. So this is going to be a series.
We're actually shooting a pilot for a reality show.
Wow, it's tough. It's tough.
You're expected, I was told by Diamond and Silk last May, you're expected to vote Republican. You're expected to vote Democrat, be a Democrat, worship Democrat. And Diamond and Silk put it this way. They said, stay on the urban plantation. And they say, don't do that. They say, break those chains and, break out and be an American, be a free man. What do you have to say about that?
Well, those are, I think that's a true statement. I think when you look at how the black community has voted since 1960, in fact, Malcolm X said back in, I think, the ballot or the bullet speech, he said that blacks are purposely pushed and maintained or kept in one party so that they could be controlled, so we could be controlled. That's what he said in that speech. And he went on to say that, yes, we could come together and depending upon who we like, we can act as a voting bloc. But when you fast forward to the political dynamics and the financial and economic dynamics of today, I would say that when you look at the totality of those good points, it is important that we have political dispersion. So technically, they don't know how we're going to vote. And the Democrats and Republicans have a legitimate opportunity to get our vote. So when we have an equal playing field politically, both parties can compete for our vote. And when we have both parties competing for our vote, we have more resources in our neighborhoods. When we have more resources, you'll see more black businesses, better education, just like monopolies and free market competition. The competitive markets, in terms of the consumer, they fare better than in a monopoly.
Right.
So we need to stop the monopoly and get to the political competition.
And how prophetic, we're sitting here. You just heard John Burnett quoting Malcolm X. We are on Malcolm X Boulevard in beautiful Harlem, USA. I want to thank John Burnett for giving us his afternoon. And
can I end on one note?
Yes, John. Leave us. What would you like to leave us with?
MLK said, you know what, we all came here to America on different ships. But the thing is now, we're in the same boat now. And I would add, we need all hands on deck to, again, not redistribute wealth, but redistribute opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Burnett.